I do.
Zeitler, O'Connor, and Arnold, I guess their updates on those.
We got better news on Zeitler and Arnold. I can't guarantee that they're playing, but it's much better than it appeared to be when the injuries happened. So it's positive news. O'Connor is not as positive. It's the best way to say that for those three. Yes, ma'am.
About injuries too, but for long term, looking like Carlton Davis, Derek Barnes, are they progressing like you would think?
They're doing great. I don't see them coming back at all. Those players won't. I don't see them coming back at all.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How about Aiden?
Yeah, it's same thing. Look, I'm going to say it again. He has a season-ending injury, but if anybody can come back from this, it would be Aiden, is the best way to say it.
And that is from Dan Campbell's press conference today. First of all, we appreciate you for joining us. I am Spencer. He is Nick. We got Chase. We got Chris in the booths. We are the Woodward Heavyweights. Make sure you smash that like button. Get in there with those super chats if you want your comment to be jumped to the front of the line, and we'll read it right away. But Dan Campbell there in his press conference today talking about the injuries. He said he expects David Montgomery to be back in the next game. So the next time they play the divisional round of the playoffs in Ford Field, Dan Campbell fully expects Knuckles, a.k.a. David Montgomery, to go out there and suit up for the Lions. Terrion Arnold and Kevin Zeitler, he said, we're promising. Terrion Arnold already said himself he's going to play. He's day-to-day right now with a foot contusion. Yep. So that week off is definitely going to help him. Same with Kevin Zeitler. It was a hammy. Sounds like it was just a pull and nothing too, but not a strain or a tear, God forbid. I'm expecting him to play as well. And then you hear the bad news.
Yeah.
Carlton Davis, Derek Barnes, neither of which will be returning for this stretch run in the playoffs. But he kept the door open for Aiden Hutchinson.
True.
He kept the door open for 97. He said, if anybody can do it, it's going to be that big son of a bitch.
And, God. I mean, he left off with a little bit of something positive there. But after hearing the news, honestly, I think the biggest thing in that whole entire presser was that Carlton Davis isn't going to return. To me. Because I'm not looking past anybody. Don't get me wrong. But I am thinking about Super Bowl. I am thinking about Mahomes. I am thinking about Josh Allen. Carlton Davis was a leader on this defense, especially in that cornerback room. That's a really massive loss if he's not able to come back, which obviously it sounds like he's not. Yeah. You did get the positives with the week coming up. Those were positive updates. But to hear about Carlton Davis now being out for the year, it sounds like, from the head coach Dan Campbell, in the long run, I think that's going to be a bigger impact than some of these short-term losses.
Yeah,
you get back.
Carlton Davis was playing at an all-pro level before he went out, and so it sucks to hear that. It sucks to hear that he is done for the year, but Amik Robertson has stepped up in a big way since he has been out. Since he's moved to the outside, Amik Robertson has been very good for this Detroit Lions team, so I think the best news that came out of that was Terrion and Kevin Zeitler are not as bad as they expected, but another big loss, he said Pat O'Connor's was worse. It wasn't good. So
yep.
you hate to hear that. Obviously, the news isn't out if he's done for the year or if it's just a game he's going to have to miss or 2 games, but Pat O'Connor, not as good as expected, but the bye week, you got Terrion and Zeitler both looking promising. That's good news for Lions fans.
Definitely. I think the Zeitler one is extremely big to have him back because we have liked what we've seen out of Mahogany in spurts, but he is a rookie. He's a 6th-round rookie. There's no other way around it. He doesn't have the experience as a guy like Kevin Zeitler. He has 7 career postseason games. This is a really key leader in that offensive line group that would be big to have in your first home game against, whoever wants to come in here and lose. Having Zeitler back is massive for the run game and the pass.
And Brandon Stanley in the Woodward Sports chat super chats it. So I'm forced to read it. He says, just have Hutch use the spare leg between his legs. He's got 3rd leg. Let him go out there. Call him tripod. But Chris, how do you feel about this? Biggest news, David Montgomery more than likely going to be back for that first playoff game.
That's the biggest news to me because now you're looking at an offense that is pretty much complete as it was last year. And I pair that with the Terrion injury not being as serious, and Zeitler too obviously was mentioned in that same sentence. But those to me are the big headlines. Why? Because we've had this conversation a lot. A lot of us believe, I think in fact all of us in this room believe we were a cornerback away from the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
The emergence of Amik, the emergence of Terrion. I'd like to get updates on Ennis Rakeshaw just for a depth piece as well. But if you believe in Amik continuing to have success, if you believe in Terrion continuing to grow, and this offense being pretty much the same as it was last year, if not better, then by all means you should have Super Bowl expectations. You should be the Super Bowl favorites like Vegas has us right now. So to me, that was the big deal. I didn't expect Carlton Davis to be back. That blow does hurt.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you believe in this cornerback room of what you have, in this secondary room of what you have, and you were a secondary away last year, then by proximity, by virtue, you should be expecting this team to be competing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, no one would disagree that this team was a cornerback away from winning or getting to the Super Bowl last year. But also now this team is without Aiden Hutchinson and Ali McNeil, who they had on that team last year. So
That's fair. Yeah,
those are it kind of balances out. But I still think the defense is improved from what it was last year going to the defense. I think, or going into the playoffs. I think Amik Robertson is going to step up and have a great game and have a great playoff run. But the biggest thing and the positive, David Montgomery being back. I said it in the intro. That sets the tone in these playoff games, in these home games. You got David Montgomery who's going to come out there for the first drive, and he's going to punch you in the mouth, and they're going to methodically move the ball down the field. You enforce your will on teams when you have David Montgomery going in that first drive. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs has been fantastic since he has had to take over that number one running back role. He has been fantastic all season, and Craig Reynolds did a good job in filling in when he needed to, especially in the last game against the Vikings. He looked great. But having David Montgomery back means a lot for the pace of this team, a lot for the thoughts that these guys are feeling. He's a big locker room guy. He's extremely important. He sets the tone being that physical guy in that first drive to punch you in the mouth and move the ball down the field.
Along with setting the tone, I think a big thing is it keeps our defense off of the field.
Yeah.
They can't score if they don't have the ball. So, yeah, like you said, the first drives have been so impressive when you do have DeMont because it takes up 7 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
You don't have to rely on your defense. And we've talked so much about this new defense and how Aaron Glenn has had to reshape it and bring pressure in situations to try to force turnovers. If you're not on the field, you're going to be just fine because David Montgomery eats the clock without a doubt. So I'm feeling really confident, like Chris said, with this offense moving forward, nobody's going to be able to stop them. They got everybody back, and hopefully Zeitler is ready to go as well.
And G-Man DT in the Woodward Sports Chat says, TA looks to come back. Good news. Thought it was a high ankle sprain, but nope. Yeah, and he's a kid, man. He's a young guy. We saw the same thing with Sam Laporta last year when he took a shot to the knee, and people were like, ooh, that didn't look good. He bounced right back. He played the rest of the game. Even Matt Stafford said, if I took that hit to the knee, I would have been done for the year. But it's these young bones, these young joints, and Terrion Arnold avoided anything serious. The x-rays were negative, and they labeled it a foot contusion. So that's the best case scenario for that. Chase, how do you feel about these injury newses?
I mean, not surprising to hear Dan Campbell come to the podium and talk the way he does. Very much just a lot of coach speak.
Yeah.
He's not gonna show his hand in any way to the fans or to any other teams. So David Montgomery is going to be huge. Like you said, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's been playing fantastic. But I mean, can you ever have too many great running backs in the NFL? I don't think so. They complement each other very well with their skill sets. So I mean, hopefully we can get a little bit more help on the defense, whether that be Hutch, whether that be Derek Barnes, possibly, anybody, any little help we can get, possibly coming back, I'm all for.
Yeah, I think having these guys in the playoffs, that 1-2 punch of Montgomery and Gibbs, like you said, Nick, to eat clock, to just methodically move the ball, and David Montgomery being back for those short, that 4th and 2 or that 4th and 1 where they threw the ball to JMO and it got tipped at the line. You give that to David Montgomery instead, and he's going to pick it up for you.
Exactly. And we talked a lot about Gibbs yesterday, but we also mentioned maybe the return of Monty, and this is the best running back room in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they set the tone for this Detroit Lions team. When we've had so much success, it's because we're able to run the ball, dominate the line of scrimmage, and hit the big plays and play action. You see St. Brown getting open. You see Sam Laporta getting up the seam in those play action spots. When they're expecting him to block, he sneaks out, goes right up the middle. You see J-Mo coming on some crossing patterns. It opens everything up for this Detroit Lions offense to be successful and to be the best offense within the NFL.